Help Wanted 2 is coming out soon, and it looks like with it will come a remake of Sister Location, which is currently FNAF's most divisive game. That might change with this remake, adding in modern twists and minigames to enhance the experience. But that's not the only thing it may improve on. Now, I wouldn't be counting my chickens yet, but there is a chance we might get up close and personal with the Sister Location staff once more, and maybe some of the more overlooked characters of the game will get more building. I still stand by the fact that the Innard Vent section in Help Wanted gave him so much more presence. We got to see how he moved, got this unintendedly cute scene, and it was all really cool, just seeing him crawl around pipes and such. Heck, take Baby for example. In Sister Location we only see Baby once, or the shell of her. We don't really get a feel for her size, 7 feet 2 inches, or how she works, how intimidating she can be in person. She's just a voice on the line. But in Help Wanted's Baby level, we get to watch her toddle around and we get to see how big she really is. So with these two characters from the game getting so much more from the first Help Wanted, we might be getting something more from Help Wanted 2, especially since Sister Location is the starring remake for the game. That could bode well for some of the cast, especially for some of the more, less examined ones. Because out of all the characters in Sister Location, there is one, or a group of them, who have been largely neglected during and after Sister Location. Overlooked. So overlooked, in fact, that time and time again, I personally have forgotten they existed, until a random name that sounds like theirs pops up, or that one time I rewatched the Sister Location trailer like a year ago. I'm talking about the Bidybabs. Likely you know who these baby-like babbies are, but let me bring you up to speed if you don't. The Bidybabs are a group of miniature animatronics first introduced in Sister Location. As the name would imply, they look like little bald babies with a tan and white color scheme, big dolly eyes with violet irises, and are even able to open their faceplates like the larger animatronics in the game. They also resemble Circus Baby herself. These sinister little dolls are shown to be mischievous and aggressive, fully capable of attacking an adult worker and taking them down on their own, or at least when their victim is cramped into a small enough space to reach them. They will tease and mock their victims as they try to get into them. As for the Bidybabs' role in the greater business, they are often shown on posters with Circus Baby, and from their smaller, similar though less intricate designs, they seem to be Baby's versions of Ballor's Mini-Renas, a small companion sidekick for the main act. Though, other than in a teaser of Baby peeking out of a corner over the Bidybabs and some pictures of them together, we never really see the two, or more, interact together in any meaningful way. From their one and only reference to Baby, they seem to be afraid of her, but considering this is part of Baby's act to gain the player's trust, we can't be too sure of what's going on here. I'll get back to that in a minute. Speaking of pre-release materials, the Bidybabs had a line in the trailer that was cut from the final game. Now, whether this was a one-time line or there was a cut scene in the game is unclear, though it is kind of a shame that a line that went this hard didn't make it in. But let's talk about what did appear in the game. While the teaser shows numerous Bidybabs, only assumedly 2 appear in Sister Location, and 2 of the same or separate Bidybabs, it's unclear, appear in Custom Night. On Night 2, the player is in the Circus Gallery when the power fails. It is then that we are first introduced to Baby, who speaks to the player before guiding them to hide in a little nook underneath the console. One with a sheet cover full of holes. Very effective hiding spot. Not like something could immediately look right in. That is when the Bidybabs enter. They begin to call for and toy with the player.
Hello in there. Someone is inside. Is it the same person? Knock knock. We always find a way inside.
They then start trying to get in. They tug at the cover, and you must catch it and force it closed. They peek through the holes, and you mustn't make eye contact. It lasts for a short amount of time before they are scared off.
She's watching us. We have to leave now. We will see you again soon.
After that point, the Bidybabs do not appear again. Their remains are not in the scooping room, though neither are the mini-arenas, so this is not exclusive to them. Both groups appear in the Custom Night update released later on, where they can be fought in some of the preset challenges, most notably Doll's Attack, but featured in many others as well. There are two variants of Bidybab, the one that comes crawling through the vent and the Electrobab. The crawling Bidybabs, you'll have to wait until they get to the end of the vent before closing the door in their face to drive them off. The notable thing being that you don't actually have to check the vents to know where she is. The Bidybabs have sound cues telegraphing every section of movement. First, she plays this line.
I don't want to play hide and seek.
Then she plays this one.
I'm going to find a way inside.
And then there is a sound. When you hear that sound, you know she's at the end of the vent. After the successful end of a night, there's a good chance you'll hear this little tantrum as well.
I'm gonna get inside!
The Electrobab appears in one of two closets and begins to drain your battery. You have to shock them to drive them off, with them heading to the other closet next. This makes the Electrobab sort of like the counterparts to the mini-arenas, the ones who tinker with the oxygen. That's their entire role in Sister Location Custom Night. Now before we move on to their next appearance, know that this is actually the last of the Bidybab's major roles. From this point forward, their appearances are only limited to cameos, very small ones where they don't do anything but exist as a piece of set dressing. Let's address those. While the Bidybabs have a blink and you'll miss them cameo in the Sister Location themed office and Ultimate Custom Night, they are not animatronics who you can challenge and encounter in the game. While there are plenty of animatronics who don't make it into the lineup, it is noticeable since the mini-arenas and Bonnet both return as secret characters, and the Bidybab's main gimmick, being vent animatronics, could have allowed them a place in the less crowded vent section. Though there are already a handful of vent animatronics, so it might have been a little overbooked. A Bidybab appears as a cameo in Baby's level in Help Wanted, but it doesn't do much except stand there. I don't know much about this cameo either. You can find footage of it on YouTube and the model on Wikipedia, but I'm not sure if it's a random encounter or not. I'm assuming it is. But something else happened in Help Wanted. This was where the Bidybabs were effectively replaced. Arguably replaced. That is, another baby-shaped tiny troublemaker came into the fold and began to get a surprising amount of appearances in the spotlight compared to the scraps the Bidybabs scraped by with. And these characters were the Plushbabies. The Plushbabies are, as the name implies, plushies that resemble Circus Baby and Scrap Baby. Though not the Circus Baby plush in Ultimate Custom Night, they instead resemble the Funko Circus Baby dolls that were released around Sister Location. There's 6 variations of Plushbaby, 3 that resemble Circus Baby in red, blue, and yellow, and 3 that resemble Scrap Baby also in red, blue, and yellow. There's also versions that wear Freddy and Friends masks in another minigame. It's unknown if they have metal endos inside of them or if they're completely made of fabric and controlled by paranormal forces. Likely it's a mixture of both, because they do have a solid body, but they're also notorious for their ability to teleport, popping in and out of sight. Plus, their name, Plushbaby, seems to relate to Plushtrap, who is another doll-centric animatronic with, at times, similar gimmicks. As for personalities, well, we can assume they're mischievous and aggressive, though most of the character consists of parroting Baby's own words in a higher-pitched voice, and occasionally BB's laugh. Because that was the character fusion we all needed.
I guess you forgot about me. You should have known I'd find you. You won't die.
But that's pretty much as far as they go in the personality department. The Plushbabies have 2 major levels in Help Wanted, along with other smaller appearances. In one of the Dark Room's levels, you are stationed in a dark prize corner while the Plushbabies creep in after you, and you have to flash your light on them to drive them off. In the Black Light's harder levels, the Plushbabies are replaced with their Scrap Baby counterparts. There's also the Plushkin Patch level with the Halloween update, which is very similar in structure to the prize corner level. Now taking place in a pumpkin patch, you have to ward off the Plushbabies wearing masks. That's pretty much it. Like the Bidybabs, the Plushbabies appear in Baby's minigame. Though instead of a cameo, they're the reason you can't just keep the closet door shut. as they will build up and freak out when you hold the doors for too long, and will eventually jump scare you. In reality, I don't imagine they're very dangerous, so likely the jump scare knocks you out and then Baby immediately finds and finishes you off. The Plush Babies return as a cameo in Security Breach, the Bidybabs do not. There is a Plush Baby prize that can be collected, and there's a room in the basement where you can find more spare Plush Baby dolls, if I'm remembering that right. Actually, no, because when I opened up Security Breach, I realized that during the last update, all of my save files had been completely deleted, which was okay. I saved a new game, I opened the folder, and I went to go implant some of my old save files into the game. Except I can't do that anymore for some reason, and I'm sure there's a workaround around it, but I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to go through the entire game just to look for one picture, unfortunately. So I looked online to see if anyone else had pictures of the room, and so I'm sure there are somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so you're just going to have to trust me on this. I either hallucinated this entire room or it's down there somewhere. But there was actually supposed to be a bigger role for these little things. Back when the survival mode was going to be implemented, there was supposedly a chance of getting a Plush Baby or Plush Moon jump scare when you opened a prize box. Likely a reference to getting jump scared by plush traps sometimes when opening boxes in Help Wanted. Whether these were just scares or run-ending events is unclear, considering it's a survival mode and this is entirely based on RNG, randomness. Likely it was a distraction more than a death. Though, again, this was cut. The Plush Babies also have a quick cameo in Ruin. Cassie can spot them, look away, look back, and they'll be gone. Like they were never there. Like another character we might have forgotten along the way. It's funny to think that in these two games, the Plush Babies really got more gameplay relevance than the Bidybabs ever had. And with very little lore relevance to the Plush Babies edition too. Unlike the Bidybabs who have an established background, the Plush Babies just appeared and pretty much filled their role. I think it's summed up best with Cassie's notes on one that she finds being, "What is this doing here?" This is most obvious in minigames like the baby one, where the Bidybab, when it appears, just stands there like a little statue while the Plush Baby plays helper to the real baby. It's also a little bit of a step down in the character department. Where the Bidybabs had basic personalities, the Plush Babies kind of have even less than that. Now, realistically, you could argue that the Plush Babies didn't exactly replace the Bidybabs, as they weren't really being used that much around the time they were introduced, but it does feel like a situation where we have two characters who might be filling the same role. Small Circus Baby themed sidekick creature who is mischievous, speaks in a high-pitched voice, and often parrots her. So, yes and no. The Plush Babies are definitely filling a role that the Bidybabs could have filled, but there wasn't much of a push to keep the Bidybabs as reoccurring characters anyway. Likely the Bidybabs will return in Help Wanted 2 because of the sister location connection, but we know for certain that the Plush Babies will. Footage from the Help Wanted 2 presentation, I think provided by Dawko, but I'm not 100% sure, showed a whack-a-mole styled level that involves Bon Bon, Helpy, and later the Plush Babies. That, along with their Ruin cameo, shows that they are not going anywhere. But let's step away from the game for a minute to discuss the books, because there's some oddness in regards to the Bidybabs there too. Bidybabs solely as the Plush Babies do not appear in them. Like Funtime Freddy and not Bon Bon, and Funtime Foxy who is actually Mangle, the Bidybabs appear in the fourth closet in a strange, just slightly off-kilter way. For example, they aren't the Bidybabs, but the Baby Crawlers. At least, that's what Wikipedia calls them. I spot-read the fourth closet, and that wasn't a spot I read. Instead of the little babies from the games, they're instead described as little clown dolls of various costuming and conditions, running around in Circus Baby's pizza, when the not main character Carlton, and side character Marla show up. They don't really do anything. And neither do the Baby Crawlers. Later, they flip on Afton after all of the animatronics turn against him and assumedly melt in the furnace sometime afterwards. Not really much of an appearance, even more strange that they had such an overhaul. Even Funtime Freddy and Funtime Foxy were still given the same names. Well, until Funtime Foxy became Mangle. It's a weird but not very noticeable cameo, but it fits for their role in Sister Location as a brief ankle-biter threat, and at least they appear. Ballora and her mini Renas did not, so they could have easily gotten left out. The next Bidybab appearance is not an appearance, but instead something even more strange. Remember the Bobbiedots? In case you don't know, the Bobbiedots are a trio of virtual home assistants at the Faz Tower in the Tales of the Pizzaplex story, The Bobbiedots. There seems to be no clever corruption or morphing of words behind the names, so by all accounts, the Bobbidot name is a reference to the Bidybabs, even though there is nothing relating the two. While the Bobbiedots on the book look like cutesy little aliens, perhaps in a chibi way that might somehow connect to the Bidybabs, in the book they are busty doki doki waifus with colorful hair, cat-shaped anime eyes, wearing tight gray pantsuits, and one of them likes to shove food into her mouth like churros and corn dogs. So yeah, taking all of this in, there's absolutely no connection between the Bidybabs and the Bobbiedots. The name was just a very out-of-place homage. Well, that's the end for the Bidybabs, for now. What do I think of them and their counterparts, the Plushbabies? I think the Bidybabs were minorly underutilized. Although, I didn't notice it until after the Plushbabies became a staple. Sure, they are different beings entirely, and you might find the Plushbabies scarier than the Bidybabs. Personally, I think both are a little too cute to be spooky, with the Bidybabs being slightly more uncanny. But when you break them down into their most basic forms, the, again, little baby-esque creatures causing mischief, it is kind of unfair to the poor Bidybabs that their cuter cousins became such a staple, possibly in their place. But I feel like this was inevitable. The lack of interest in the Bidybabs was apparent from their meager background roles, even to the fourth closet, where they are featured, but only if they are changed enough to become an almost completely different character. Eventually, they were going to get left behind. But a little more surprising that something would be created to take their place. We will likely see both return and help Wanted too, but the future past that? Well, all signs lead to the Plushbabies having a bright future, and the Bidybabs don't count on it. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching.